Yes, I read it. This is the first book I've read voluntarily in many years, probably since middle school. I think the last book I voluntarily read was Twilight in like the 7th grade. And I guess is very similar. I'm a fan of some kind of trashy teen young adult novel stuff, okay? Hello and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about Jessica Jung's book Shine. Jessica Jung is a former member of Girls' Generation. She debuted with them and then she left or got kicked out. Something happened. I guess no one's really sure. It's very confusing, but it happened. So when the news came that she was writing a book based on her experiences as a K-pop idol and trainee, oh, we went nuts for it, I'm sure. Before I start talking about the book, I'm going to let you know right now, this is a spoiler-free review of the book. If you are looking for an actual description and summary of the book, I got great news. I am also making that video and it will be uploaded later. It's going to take longer for me to edit that, so this will be uploaded first. So this video is really great for if you plan on maybe reading it and you don't want me to spoil what happens. But if you want to know every tea spilling thing that happens in the book, that's going to be in the other video. That video is going to be a lot longer. We're going through chapter by chapter. And yes, it's long, but remember, it's faster to watch that video than to read the book yourself. So your choice on what you want to do. So like I said, I don't read books often, especially not voluntarily. I only read books that have pictures and they're mangas most of the time, all of the time. I will say, as someone who doesn't read books, I had a lot of fun reading this book. I had a blast. So I guess we can start off by addressing the big question about the book. Is there tea on the Girls' Generation drama? Not really. There is slightly something. There are definitely characters who are probably inspired by former Girls' Generation members, or they could have just been trainees that she knew, except they got into the group. So I guess they're girls. Oh, is that a spoiler? Oh no. Most of the kind of tea spilling information in the book revolves around the K-pop industry, including the dieting, even some plastic surgery stuff, dating scandals, manipulation done by the companies, how the trainees interact. And then the biggest one she really touches on is kind of like the double standards in K-pop, how male idols get treated versus female idols. So yeah, keep in mind the book takes place before the debut of Girls' Generation. Out of all the drama stuff that I think was talked about in the book, I really enjoyed reading about the double standards, and I thought this was a great platform to discuss this as someone who clearly went through this. I think to especially Western fans, it is very clear about the double standard, or at least I hope it's clear. An example of this being with any dating scandal, that the female idol is usually viewed as either a slut or that she lured the male idol and is like, while the male idol is like,
oh, he's helpless and oh my gosh, she's just leading him on and his heart's gonna be broken.
And I think the obvious kind of situation we can all relate this to that happened in real life was the Taeyeon-Baekhyun relationship that happened. Taeyeon got so much poop. It sucks. It sucks that that's kind of what happens. I do think it's getting better, but that doesn't mean it still doesn't happen. I'm sure it's always gonna happen, but it sucks. It sucks. She also talks a lot about female idols getting unnecessary hate, which, yeah, like, first person I think of is Jennie from Blackpink, always just has something going on And it's like totally irrelevant to anything. She talks about getting comments such like,
oh, she's not pretty enough for this. Oh, she should be getting plastic surgery. Oh, she's really not that talented.
and that kind of stuff really hurts. I definitely felt sad reading those parts because I'm sure that is definitely coming from, you know, deep inside that, you know, she definitely encountered those kinds of messages. And a big thing is they talk about is with the male idol, he is seeing it as, oh no, that is just criticism. Totally kind of brushing off that, no, they're just hating to hate her. And people think that she shouldn't be the one performing with him, kind of thing. And it's sad to see. As for the actual Girls' Generation tea, like I said, doesn't really happen here. Maybe in the next book we'll get something, since that's going to be taking place during the actual group's existence. There's no Shmeyun or Bithany in the book, if you know what I mean. There is a main antagonist who I'm sure is very like inspired by members of the group. Maybe not specifically one member. I know there was talk of people thinking like,
oh, this character's representing Taeyeon.
I don't necessarily think that's the case. I think of it as more as she probably combines a lot of stuff that Jessica encountered during training, and it's kind of probably elevated a little more for the drama effect of the book. Because if not, oh my god, there's this one thing that this character does that is so awful, and I remember like actually just being like shook reading it and hoping that this wasn't something that happened to her, because oh my god. And with the main antagonist, her description does not fit any specific member of Girls' Generation. She comes from a wealthy family. She's a lead dancer. She kind of has this combination of different traits of the members. And then in addition to the main antagonist, there's kind of like her crew of mean girls, like in every kind of teen thing. I'm sure they're also inspired by other members. And one thing that it really does make you think about is what a weird system where they are pitting all of these trainees against each other because you're competing to get into this group. Then you're expected to like be friends with them and interact with them and live with them. It's very hard to think about ever wanting to do that. And that was something that was kind of hard for me to understand when reading the book, was why was this character so passionate about debuting? She mentions a lot how K-pop's really important to her. It has like a connection to her grandmother and all of this stuff. But I still had a hard time understanding why she put up with so much stuff. Because a lot of the book is talking about how like it's hurting her dad and her mom and her sister and herself and her friends. It's kind of asking like, what is this all for? Is this really worth it? And I'm sure that's a question that, you know, Jessica was asking herself at the time. I do wish there was some more kind of explanation or deep dive into that she wanted this more than anything and didn't care. Like, she was willing to, you know, make these sacrifices. And I don't know. I know it gets brought up, but I just didn't feel the impact enough. And this reminds me of an issue I had with the book. I have such a hard time disconnecting Rachel, who's the main character, from Jessica. I am reading this whole book thinking Jessica is the main character, which is weird since, you know, her trainee days were so long ago. So to think of her having kind of like any grudges and stuff is like kind of just weird, because I know she's a grown woman now. This was years and years ago. I understand, you know, she wants to tell her story and her experiences, And it really isn't, I think, what people were thinking this was. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, it is really just a story about a girl trying to get into the K-pop industry with experiences that Jessica had. But it's really hard to not see the story as this is what happened to Jessica. And if you kind of know the story of Jessica leaving Girls' Generation, I found some parts of the book kind of humorous in that it's so weirdly kind of shoved in. So, for one thing, Jessica kind of left Girls' Generation, I guess, because she was inspired to do fashion. That was her passion. And it's kind of brought up in the book, but in such a weird way. It pretty much is just like said that she really loves fashion. Like, it'll just randomly say that she's drawing some fashion stuff, or oh my god, she's at a mall in the fashion, or she's describing the clothes. And so with the knowledge of knowing Jessica, it's kind of funny because in the book, it doesn't go anywhere. It's never gets brought up really again after those few times she talks about it. I'm sure, you know, the next book's gonna have the whole fashion element to it, but it once again made it hard to separate the main character from Jessica. Another issue I kind of had with the book was the incorporation of the Korean elements and culture. I think this was a good idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm not upset that she did this. I think some of it wasn't done well. She includes some Korean words and phrases, which I think were fine. And if you watch K-pop content, you're gonna know what these words mean. It's very basic, classic Korean stuff. I don't know how it is for anyone who isn't knowledgeable on any kind of Korean culture or language or phrases, whatever. Granted, I don't know if anyone who's not into K-pop is really reading this book, but who knows, with after, you know, the Netflix movie that I guess is happening, people might want to end up reading the book. Because a lot of the Korean phrases don't really get explained in any kind of way. They're just kind of thrown and you're expected to just kind of go with it. I don't know if that's how books work when they do this, but I just thought it was weird. Because, like, there was a good example in the book where she talked about a specific cultural aspect of Korea. I don't remember specifically what it was, but she actually explained, like, the history of it. And I was like, this is cool, especially because I had never heard of it. So that was kind of nice. However, that chapter that it was from was probably my least favorite chapter of the book because the whole chapter felt like it didn't need to happen and it was only so she could talk about Korean culture and it didn't move the plot. And that's the big thing I'm focusing on. The chapter I'm talking about, it takes place on Jeju Island, which, you know, every K-pop group has some reality show there at some point. There is one, I guess, plot important element that happens there, but it could have happened, I guess, anywhere. And the way that it, like, happens on Jeju Island is so not realistic at all. And it's just weird. And a lot of that chapter is really just her talking about Jeju Island. I guess kind of related, but not really related is, so going off of the Korean culture part, she talks about K-pop a lot, obviously, in the book. Now, of course, she can't mention real K-pop idols, real groups, or real songs. I get that, but it's so weird. I am someone who deeply follows K-pop, so I know a lot. More than just, you know, the popular songs. And in the book, she talks about, like, oh, this famous group or this famous song. And it's weird because it's not obviously real. And it's kind of throws you into this, like, oh yeah, this isn't real. Like, it's like when I see a 555 number in a movie and I'm like, well, I know that's a fake number, so, like, I'm taken out of it. If that makes sense at all. And like I said, duh, she couldn't do this because you can't just call out people in the industry. But what made it even like weirder is because she does talk about other celebrities who are real. So she brings up Taylor Swift, Joe Jonas, Beyonce. So then you kind of get lost in what world is this, where clearly there are people that are in my universe, but K-pop is just something completely different. I don't know if there was like a good way to work around it, probably not, but it was jarring for me at least. But yeah, that's pretty much my critiques of the book. Overall, I had a blast reading this, and not to spoil it, but the ending had me it just goes so hard at one point that I couldn't put it down, and I was very invested and I was eating it up. Just remember, if you're going to read this, yes, it's probably for a younger audience. You know, it's like if you're reading Twilight, okay, with how it's written. I love this kind of stuff. I remember there was specifically one scene that made me realize that, oh my gosh, I really do love this, because it reminded me of a shoujo anime. And shoujo anime being kind of girlier anime, usually like a rom-com kind of style. So if you know anime, think of like Maid Sama, Lovely Complex, Nozaki-kun, or on a High School Host Club. You get what I'm saying if you know anime. And at the beginning of the book, I was having a hard time really getting into it because, like I said, I kept thinking of Jessica writing this. But when I got to that point and realized, oh my god, this as an anime would be so great. Yeah, who am I kidding? I do really enjoy this. It could also be that as a book, that's not the medium I really enjoy. So obviously I would like it more as an anime. We're getting a movie, which I think will be entertaining. I still really want an anime adaptation of this because I think it would work so well. So consider that. And my final thoughts on the book, if you made it this far into the review, well, first, thank you. I probably should have opened up the video with this information, but I didn't want this to possibly put anyone off. But I am an OT8 Girls' Generation fan. But it's not because I don't like Jessica, it is because that was the group when I got into K-pop. She had already left. And there's the story of, you know, Jessica getting kicked out and everything. So there was kind of this negative view about her. So I never really took the time to get invested in her or what, you know? With that being said, I find that I respect Jessica a lot more. She definitely went through a lot of hard times, and I don't think she's whiny about it in the book. She brings up a lot of just great points of, like I said, the double standards and sexism that happens in K-pop. She also brings up the point of being a foreigner in the industry and the difficulties that come with that, which is something I guess I wouldn't say I haven't thought about, but I didn't think about it in the extent that she discussed it. And it was kind of moving at one point. So Jessica is from America, and she talks about with one of the other characters who is from Canada that they don't feel like they fit in either place. You know, over in America, Canada, they're too Asian to fit in. But then, while in Korea, they're foreigners. There's too American, too Canadian, whatever, to fit in there. So they don't have this place that they feel like they belong because they're getting bullied either way about just being different. And that was, like I said, that kind of hit me in a way that I didn't think it would. And I really appreciate her discussing that. I think people should give this book a chance and hear what she has to say, because it's not this petty thing that I think a lot of people were thinking this was going to be. She is talking about some greater issues, and I kind of admire it. I respect her. I am happy she did this, and I hope people listen and have the same view that I had. I definitely found myself being a Jessica supporter by the end of the book, and I highly encourage other people to read it. With that being said, if you don't want to read it, you don't have the time you don't like reading, whatever it is, I got you. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, there will be another video of me pretty much going through the entire book so you don't have to read it. And so you can really get the story and get all the tea and drama and everything that's talked about in the book. Because it's a fun story. And I'm excited to tell it. If you read the book, I would love to know your thoughts. I am so excited for the Netflix adaptation of this when it comes, and even more excited for the sequel of the book. I am gonna eat this up, and I will definitely continue to make content on the continuation of this. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, or night, whenever it is your time that you are watching this. And remember to drink water. Bye.